All right, good morning. Good morning. What's going on, everybody? What is going on? What is going on? Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Friday, July 31st. Are we done after this show? I think, like, technically, if I'm going by last year, we would be done with the show for a little bit of time here. I won't do it the same as I did it last year. I think we'll still be getting some shows in. Obviously in the month of August as well. Still a lot to talk about. I mean, hell, right before we just came on to start the show, Eric's like, hey, I got some new information, more teams involved, Lakers upping their financial. God, we still got a lot going on this offseason. I appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Thank you very much for being here. A couple quick reminders here. I got a member show today right after this show. So we'll do this show 9:30 at the latest. I'm going to do the member show. So if you are a member, please hang around and we'll shoot the you-know-what for about 20, 25 minutes or so. If you're not a member, please consider it. It is $3 a month, and it's a great way to support the channel. We do one show a week for the members, exclusively for the members, and we talk a little bit about everything. All right, let me give everyone a quick rundown of what we got going on for the show. Cheers to you. Did I do it again? I did it again. I didn't fill up my coffee mug. All right. I'll end up with about 1 cup of coffee. All right. We got a number of different things that we can get into today and some stuff that's kind of happening as we talk. Roster incomplete. As you look at this Los Angeles Lakers roster, and I think there's a lot of stuff that you can talk about. The projected starting lineup, let's just assume Jonathan Kuminga isn't there. We do know that he's still a top target. The PJ Washington, I saw some stuff, over these last couple of days. Did the Lakers make a mistake by not going all in on PJ Washington? All right, if there isn't a Jonathan Kuminga, who is playing that starting power forward role? So we'll get into it. I think there's some good stuff here. Keith Smith was speaking to an anonymous front office source about the Lakers, talking about the Lakers roster. We'll talk a little bit about that, but it is incomplete. I think that's safe to say. That I think that there is nobody I think is looking at this Lakers team and this Lakers roster and saying, they're good to go. They don't need anything else. I don't think anybody's saying that, to be honest with you. It's obviously a completely different chapter. We'll talk about some of the areas where the Lakers are incomplete and what do they do if this is the roster. There are, it appears, 3 new teams now that enter the Jonathan Kuminga sweepstakes. So if you want some Jonathan Kuminga updates, here's the update that I can tell you. And again, we'll get into this, and this will be, part of a longer conversation. But the newest information on Jonathan Kuminga is the Lakers and the Hawks are not the Lakers and the Cavs are not the only teams in town. And the Lakers, it sounds like, are still trying to be very, very aggressive on the Jonathan Kuminga front. He's been an interesting conversation because I got some Laker fans that are basically saying, hey, screw this guy. If he doesn't want to be a Laker and he's not valuing it enough, well, move on. And then I take my position, which is more, well, what the hell is plan B? There really isn't a plan B. So I don't think the Lakers, I don't think they're in a position to basically say, well, we don't care what he thinks. It's not like there's 4 other power forwards that they're about to sign and they're picking and choosing between all these different players. So we'll get into the Jonathan Kuminga stuff, just the latest on the Kuminga front, because there is new information about Jonathan Kuminga. There's a really good article in the LA Times. Miriam Swanson had an article in the LA Times. I'm just going to read this, just the actual title, then we'll talk about it here. Who cares about LeBron's move to the Sixers? Lakers have gotten better without him. So we'll get into what that article, obviously what it means, the case that she's trying to make, why she thinks the Los Angeles Lakers are better. And, I'll ask that. I'll propose the same question to Laker fans as well. Are they better without LeBron? Are they better with this roster than they were with last season's roster? So we'll get into that. But that was in the LA Times, so I had to get into that. Quentin Grimes, kind of a little bit of a player profile on Quentin Grimes. He had, we'll play some video of him, and it was on X, about 30 seconds long or so. And he talks about growing up, how his dad was a big Lakers fan. I think they grew up in Houston. He was a big Laker fan, and just talks about how it's kind of come full circle how he gets this opportunity now to play for the Los Angeles Lakers, what it means to him. So I'm interested. There's some players that, we've spent a lot of time on Walker Kessler, or we spent a lot of time on some other players of the roster. Quentin Grimes maybe has gone a little bit under the radar. So we'll talk about Quentin Grimes, the impact that he could have this season. I did mention this to you guys. Last couple of weeks, I was trying to coordinate with Brad Wallace of the Wallace Firm. I've mentioned that, obviously a big Laker fan. He's come on the show before. I've done my show from the studio over there, his studio in Encino. So he'll join us probably last 15, 20 minutes of the show. He'll be hanging out with us, and looking forward to having him on. We'll talk a little bit about, this current roster and any other topics that come up. We'll do a little bit of NBA news, and then we'll call it a week. So thank you all for being here. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Please subscribe to the channel. It is the number one way to support this channel. Goes with a lot of these, YouTube shows. The more people you get to subscribe, like, and share, it does help. Helps with the algorithm. I don't know. I just hear everybody say algorithm. So I just feel like I got to say algorithm. Sometimes I walk around, I'm at the grocery store, and I'm like, how about that algorithm, huh? They have no idea what I'm talking about. I just hear that term all the time. All right, let's read a couple of the comments, and then we'll take it from there. Let's see what we got here from our peeps. Let's see what we have here. Kuminga, same story every day, just going in a circle. A little bit different this time. It's a little bit different because there are new teams involved, and I think it does kind of add a little bit of a wrinkle. It might make it more of a challenge for it to happen, but yes. I get a lot of this as well. Why do people get so angry? I don't understand. Like, they take everything so personal. The screw Kuminga news. That's an interesting one there. Lakers are still missing a couple key pieces in their lineup that they need to go out on the open market and get. They just have to get it before the season opens, and then I'll reevaluate. I don't even think it has to necessarily be before the season starts, to be honest with you. This could be a little bit of work in progress as well. Maybe some of the players that they got are better than they thought. Maybe some of the players that they got are worse than they thought. But that's not going to come by the start of the regular season. Honestly, you're not going to know that until you get closer to the trade deadline. So I think it's clear that this is a good transition to our first topic. I think it's clear the roster is incomplete. I think we could all say that. So now the question is going to be, how do the Lakers get to where they want to get to by the time you get to that trade deadline? And I think that's probably the more important question to ask. Now, if they happen to sign Jonathan Kuminga and Kuminga became a Laker, then that's kind of one thing you could check off your box. You could say, all right, I think they're good with their forwards because they'd have Kuminga and Zaire Williams. And, a lot of these plan Bs that they had, they already signed. Zaire Williams and Matisse Thybulle were supposed to be plan Bs. They got both of them. And they're still trying to go out there and get another, obviously starting four. Okay, let's get the show started. Shout out again. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. And we'll start off with the roster incomplete news. Okay, so I think there's, again, part of this I'm getting LakersDaily.com. There was an article, why every path to a Lakers starting four has been blocked. And it kind of just goes into, this is the biggest void for the Lakers. This is why the roster is incomplete. It doesn't mean that Walker Kessler is going to be a great fit or a bad fit. It doesn't mean that Mamu or Quentin Grimes or Collin Sexton or Matisse Thybulle, or go down the list of all the players that they got, or drafting Cameron Carr or the development of Adu Thero. It doesn't mean that the roster is perfect. It means if you're looking at the roster on paper, clearly the roster, there are some holes. And I think there are some question marks, some legitimate question marks. I've played this exercise with Laker fans in the past. And we'll have the conversation about, I've seen a lot of people, and this is common, and I get it. ESPN's going to do this. Here are the top 10 teams in the NBA. Here's where the Lakers are in their power rankings. Here's the playoff odds. Here is the title odds. Everybody's going to do that because that's just how sports works. And you do that all after you can call the offseason is done. The problem with the Lakers, I think they're going to be one of the more difficult teams to know what you have. I don't know of another roster in the NBA, and if there is one, you guys can tell me here. Do you know of another roster that had this many changes philosophically, star changes? Do you know of another roster in the NBA that had this much turnover? I don't. So again, there probably is one. I'm just, obviously focused more on the Laker front, the Laker side of things. But I don't know if another one that obviously has this many significant changes. So with that in mind, when, the roster being incomplete, I mean, here are the questions that you're going to ask yourself. You got kind of your projected starting lineup. Luka, Austin, Quentin Grimes, Walker, Kessler. And actually, you're not sure who that power four is going to be. Okay, guys that can be competing on the roster at the power four spot. Again, hypothetically speaking, Jake LaRavia, Jared Vanderbilt, Adu Thero, Mamu could be competing there, Zaire Williams, maybe Matisse Thybulle. There are a number of players that can be competing for that power forward spot, but I don't think that's ideal for the Lakers. I don't think that's what they're looking for. We know Kuminga is still their top target, and, obviously we'll see what happens in regards to that. The PJ Washington front, other power forwards that are out there, I don't know how much maneuvering the Lakers can do at this point. I saw something that Jovan had put out there in one of his podcasts. He was talking about how the Lakers really screwed up on the PJ Washington front because he believed that Lakers should have gone all in on PJ Washington. And really the only reports that I've seen about the Lakers and PJ Washington is that they don't want to take on his 4 years, $88 million that he has on his contract. I think his contract might be starting this year. His new contract will be starting this year. So that's the 4-year, $88 million that we're talking about. Did they make a mistake there? I'm not sure. I mean, if you told me, and I've said this before, if you told me, hey, what's the perfect power four for the Lakers? Is it PJ Washington? Is it Jonathan Kuminga? Or is it, you can make up another player that has been rumored around the Lakers? I would tell you, yeah, clearly PJ Washington would be a better fit for the Lakers, more of a long-term fit, not a short-term fit. Where I feel like with Jonathan Kuminga, it's a little bit of a, well, just plug him in because you don't have a choice. Now, if you do a sign and trade, you got him for 3 years, so he better be the right fit. But, I understand why the Lakers think this is, obviously the right person to go out and get at this stage. But the roster is incomplete. Like, I don't know what else you want me to tell you. You could sit here and I could be excited about the upside that Adu Thero has. Do you really want Adu Thero starting in that power forward spot as a second-year rookie or a second-year sophomore and didn't even really play in his rookie season because of some of his injuries? I don't think I want to see that. I mean, I think probably the biggest shot you would have, or the most realistic, if the Lakers, if they're not able to go get Kuminga or another one of these, power forwards, maybe a guy like Zaire Williams is going to be the guy you end up using. I don't think they'd put Vando into there. I don't think they'd put Mamu could, but I think most people think that guy is much better coming in off the bench than he is as a starter. I'm going to read one thing here from Keith Smith, and then I'm going to move into the latest of the Jonathan Kuminga suitors. Keith Smith, who, again, this was an anonymous front office source with the Lakers organization, says, this is the quote that he had on the Lakers roster. Well, there's certainly a lot of offense, and I think it's offense that all fits together pretty well. They have way more shooting this year than last year, more off the dribble creation too. They should be a really good passing team also. Defensively, while they score a lot of points, if JJ Redick can get this group in the top 20 on defense, give him coach of the year, because they'll probably be awesome in the sense that he's not 100% sure the Lakers are going to have much of a defensive team. I think if there's one thing, and that's why you want a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, he's got more upside on the defensive side. Is he going to play his role? Would have to wait and see. But that's, I think, the one thing that I do look at this team and I look at this roster. They are so offensively skewed. It's an incomplete team. I mean, that's the best way that I can put it. I mean, you could be excited that the chapter is going to look different. You could be excited that a lot of people, I think, are excited that they've moved on from LeBron, that this is officially Luka's team. What's this thing going to look like? Walker Kessler, hopefully, is going to be a stud for the Lakers. But I don't think you can look at this team and say, hey, this thing is set. You know exactly what it's going to look like, and this is all that they need to do moving forward. It is clear that this team is incomplete, and they got, still some moves that's going to need to be made. And you guys know how this works. The moves that can be made, they got a little bit of time here. Yes, they got, I think, 16 roster positions right now, the way they're sitting. and they'll have to eventually get to 15, but they got some more work to do. All right, let me read a couple comments here, and then we can go from there. Should have got PJ and lower Reaves contracts because AR is overpaid. PJ cost is too high with his age. Not old. I think he's 27. I thought he was 28, or I think he turns 27 in August. I thought he was 28. Somebody hit me up on Twitter, said he was 26. So he's 26 today. By the time next season starts, he'll be 27. That age, I'm not too concerned about. I'm more concerned if you're 31, 32, and you're offering somebody a 4-year deal. I think that's one that has more of a concern. All right, let's get some more in here. That's exactly what I'm saying about the Lakers. They're in a real rebuild. That's why I don't expect him to go out and win the Western Conference Championships. I'll have to see what those first 20 games. I'll continue to say it, there is just no predicting what the Lakers are going to be. Cam Johnson's on an expiring contract. If he plays well, he could be re-signed for the mid-level exception. What's he? Is he? I think he's 21 million. And I think Denver's got a ton that they're trying to figure out. And Cam Johnson might just end up being a player that they have to move on from. We'll see what they end up doing. All right, we got some Kuminga updates, but before I do this, let's get Nick in here. Nick, thank you for the super. The roster turnover proves Pelinka wasn't all in with LeBron. AD asked for only a center, got traded overnight. Now Luka here, Pelinka, give him the world. AD got traded not because he asked for a center. AD got traded because the Dallas Mavericks traded Luka Dončić for Anthony Davis. I think AD would have been a Laker, and they would have found ways to kind of rebuild around him, but the only reason, Cam Johnson is $23 million, and PJ turns 28 on August 23rd. So, turns 28 August 23rd. I'm not worried about his age. Just go back to this comment here. Anthony Davis got traded for one reason, because Luka Dončić was available and the Dallas Mavericks traded him. So that's why he got traded. I don't think AD did anything wrong. I know there was kind of a weird stage there. Once that trade went down, it was the couple days before where he's saying, hey, I want to play with a center. By the way, he wasn't wrong. He does play better with a center. So whether people like it or not, that's when the Lakers, I think, were at his best, is when he played power forward and there was a center there with him. Philosophically, it sounded like the Lakers disagreed with that. Okay, let's get the latest, because if we're talking about an incomplete roster, thank you, Nick, again for the super. If we're talking about an incomplete roster, then how do you fill up the rest of that roster? If you told me tomorrow that the Lakers got a power forward and were creative and figured out a way to do it, then I'd feel a lot more comfortable about what the future looks like for the Lakers. But let's just kind of play with what we have here for a quick second. There have been a couple of different reports that have come out over the last, let's say, 24 hours on Jonathan Kuminga. So listen to this. This morning, Mike Scotto is Hoops Hype, right? Is that right, Eric? Okay, Hoops Hype reports that the Timberwolves have interest in Jonathan Kuminga now, but the Lakers and Cavs have significantly higher offers for Kuminga. So let me just read the exact quote here, because a couple things have happened. There are new suitors that are coming after Jonathan Kuminga, and maybe some of these teams out there, there are a couple other teams that feel like, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to add, and there isn't that much risk in the Jonathan Kuminga front. Here's a quote from Mike Scotto. After missing out on their pursuit of LeBron James, the Minnesota Timberwolves have also expressed interest in Kuminga with their starting power forward spot, which is up for grabs, and their 6.06 taxpayer mid-level exception available for taking, league sources told Hoops Hype. While the Lakers have a significantly higher financial offer and a longer contract on the table, and Cleveland can also offer significantly higher salary via sign and trade, Minnesota's interest is still noteworthy given the basketball fit. Okay, let me add something else to this here. This was yesterday. So now you have the Lakers interested, the Cavs interested, the Minnesota Timberwolves interested. Let me add something else here. This is something that Chris Fedor said yesterday from Cleveland.com in regards to Jonathan Kuminga. Sources say the 23-year-old Kuminga wants an annual deal in the $15 to $20 million range, which would necessitate a sign and trade with Atlanta involving either swingman Max Strus or Dennis Schroeder. The Hawks already with 17 players on the roster and incredibly close to the luxury tax would have to cooperate and actually want what Cleveland or the Lakers have. Also said the Los Angeles Clippers or Milwaukee Bucks are willing to offer in a sign and trade. So at least as of right now, I know it's a little confusing the way I worded that. The Minnesota Timberwolves interested. The Clippers interested. The Bucks interested. The Lakers interested. The Cavs interested. So you got 5 teams now, it sounds like, that have some interest in Jonathan Kuminga. That kind of is, a lot there. I know let me see here. It's made his agent, Aaron Turner of Verus Basketball, navigate his free agency. Each interested team has its own unique profile and variables being weighed, such as his average annual salary, roster fit, and deal structure. There is no specific dollar amount Kuminga is seeking that applies to all interested teams. So maybe it's getting a little muddier. Maybe it's going to get more difficult. The more teams that you add into the mix, everybody's going to come in. Here's what I think everybody can offer Jonathan Kuminga, but none of that, it sounds like, really, really appeals to Jonathan Kuminga. A lot of these teams can offer him a starting spot in the rotation. A lot of these teams can offer Jonathan Kuminga ton of minutes. They can have him kind of control that power forward spot. They can sell him on, look, you got guys like James Harden and Donovan Mitchell that can feed you when you need to, or Luka Dončić or LaMelo Ball or Austin Reaves or Anthony Edwards. They're all selling him this like vision of how you can be on the team. And I think what Jonathan Kuminga keeps saying, him and his agent, we're trying to get paid. I think the role is one thing. I think the dollar amount is another. And I don't think he's going to get that $15 to $20 million range that he's looking for. But I will tell you that if the conversation before, was it a week ago that LeBron signed? I think it was a week ago. I would have thought that this Jonathan Kuminga stuff would have got figured out by now. It still hasn't gotten figured out. So I would have thought that as we sit here today, that the Kuminga conversation would have been over. Doesn't look like it's coming to a close anytime soon. And now you got more suitors that are in the mix. I'll just remind everybody here real quick on the Kuminga front. If the Lakers somehow found a way to make that happen, it would complete their roster, this overhaul over the summer. And if they're not able to do it, I still think you have a complete glaring hole at the starting power forward position. So I'll continue to say what I've said in the past. I think it's worth the wait, and I think it's worth trying to figure out. Do I think Jonathan Kuminga is the perfect fit? No. But I think he's a really good fit. And then I think there's going to be a lot of question marks if they got him. But as we sit here today, Cleveland interested, Milwaukee interested, Lakers, of course, interested, Clippers interested, and Minnesota interested. You got 5 other suitors that are out there for the Jonathan Kuminga sweepstakes. The problem is it's not all about money. So it's almost, I don't even know how to give a good comp for it. This isn't one of those bidding wars. It's literally like, hey, we're just selling you on the opportunity. We're selling you on what it could look like. We're selling you on the fit. But they're not selling him on the dollar amount. And the dollar amount, even though I think Lakers and Cleveland are both on a similar kind of path here of what they can offer him, and Minnesota coming in, and it's a lot less money that they can offer. All right, let's take a look here, and then I want to get into an article that was in the LA Times this morning from Miriam Swanson. Had a good article in the LA Times about how the Lakers are actually better off without LeBron James. All right, let me take a look at some of these positions here. Mavs willing to trade Luka. You take the opportunity, 10 out of 10. Let's get this. I wish they would just get this Kuminga situation settled as soon as possible. The wait for his contract situation is a pain in the ass. I'll go with Vando over Kuminga. I would not. I can say that comfortably and confidently, I would not. I get it. I'm not telling you that the Kuminga thing isn't annoying. That's all Kuminga's agent wanting is more suitors. Yeah, which is smart, I think from their perspective. But Again, there's a lot of factors that have to go on the Kuminga front. There's a lot of different factors. Yes, go to Minnesota. Why is everyone stressing about a 4? Not every team has a stacked starting 5. Can't make a whole new team in one offseason. Yeah, I think, your starting 4 spot is very important. A good starting athletic wing that could play both sides of the floor is incredibly important. So that's why. That's why I think a lot of people are stressing about it. So to answer your question, I think it's a critical position. And if they're able to get, I think, if the dust settled and they got the talent of Jonathan Kuminga at that position, I think that's a big deal. I don't downplay that at all. I really don't. I couldn't even name the Spurs or Knicks 4 power forward. Both have center and 4 guards. No, not necessarily. I mean, OG Anunoby. You're going to tell me you can't name OG Anunoby on the New York Knicks? OG Anunoby is a complete stud. He was not just a stud, but he was phenomenal for the New York Knicks on that run. I think one of the more underrated players in the NBA. OG Anunoby, not only you could name, but you can sit back and you could say to yourself, yeah, that's a big-time player and a big contributor of why the Knicks got that, their first championship since, what was it, 73 or whatever year it was. Thinking off San Antonio off the top of my head, who'd they have at the starting 4? Who'd they have? Actually, that one might be a good example. I'm kind of drawing a blank at their starting 4. Eric, look it up. Who's the starting 4 in the for the San Antonio Spurs in this season? So anyways, I think, obviously those spots are critical. They're important. By the way, it could just be for the defensive side. Like, nobody's even just trying to sit here and tell you that it's, just on from an offensive perspective. Lakers have enough offense. What Lakers need is defensive players. They need defensive players that can be there and, obviously have a much bigger impact. I think these are interesting. Luka doesn't have time to let Carr and Thero develop. Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's why I've kind of said to myself that is not, necessarily a player that I would say is the right player in regards to that. I think that's a little bit different. I want to look up one thing. All right, let me see what we have here. Okay, let's see a couple more of these, and then we'll move on to this comment. Let's move on from Kuminga. Really need a true 4 and a backup. Develop a dude. Not yet, guys. I mean, that comes. You want to accomplish both of those at the same time. You want to develop both of those at the same time. I don't think that's something that you want to do. Luka is the 4. Kuminga can guard 4s occasionally. Yeah, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Offensively, what is he? And defensively, who's going to be guarding the more athletic wings? It ain't going to be Luka. Maybe he's guarding guys that are spot-up shooters that, you don't have to play all that much defense on. So that's the latest on the Kuminga front. So something to just, again, where we're sitting here today, sounds like there's about 5 total suitors that they have in regards to 5 total suitors that they have in regards to Jonathan Kuminga. You add a couple more teams this morning that weren't there. I'm going to ask, I'm kind of curious, and this one's going to be a little bit more, we'll get other people's thoughts on this as we have the conversation about this year's roster versus last year's roster. So, Eric, can you pop up that article and we get that title just on the side here? I think this is an interesting one, right? Like you have this article in the LA Times that's talking about, are the Lakers basically better off without LeBron? This specific article says, who cares about LeBron's move to the Sixers? Lakers have gotten better without him. That's pretty bold. That's a pretty bold title there. I want to go through this because I think the article is interesting and it gives kind of an idea here of what this new Lakers team is going to look like versus what the team was. So let me give everyone just kind of a couple of pieces here of why they're saying Lakers are better without him. One of, I think, the key pieces in this is Luka's now the engine. So basically, whatever this team was, You had LeBron. You were building for 8 years with LeBron, and you couldn't really build, I think, something without LeBron. If LeBron was on your team, it's not like you can just ignore and be like, well, LeBron's on the team. This is still now Luka's squad. I don't think the Lakers were able to do that. So the article kind of goes into and emphasizes it's now Luka's team. He's now responsible for creating the offense, elevating his teammates, maximizing Walker Kessler's strengths, and basically leading the franchise. Here's the keys. What was the news yesterday that we got? Yesterday, the day before, what was it? That he's going to be Luka's holding a training camp in Slovenia. And, the squad's going to come out there. The keys have been not just officially handed, but Luka can kind of steer this thing. Lakers got younger. It goes into this article about how the Lakers got younger. That the NBA rewards youth, athleticism, and durability more than ever, just compared to if you kind of look at how these other teams are doing right now, where the Oklahoma City Thunder are, where the San Antonio Spurs are. There's a lot of kind of up-and-coming teams in the Western Conference, and that this was the right approach for the Lakers to take at this stage. The article also kind of gets into that losing LeBron isn't viewed as a negative. That I don't think they're trying to make a negative out of LeBron. I think what they're trying to say is the time was now. One piece in the article, the Lakers were ready to move on, and this offseason shows they are fully committed to building around Luka. This decision wasn't a reaction, but it's a long-term organizational decision. LeBron didn't do anything wrong. LeBron just happened to be, churning on age 42. And LeBron didn't do anything wrong, but Luka's now on this team and a part of the franchise, and you want to build around Luka. So I think a lot of this, and as you look at this, obviously as you look at what the Lakers do moving forward, a lot of this article, it basically says that the Lakers had 3 major goals this offseason, and they were able to accomplish all of them, or maybe most of them. And I'll tell you what the three goals are. Again, good article here from Miriam Swanson. One of the goals that they were hoping to accomplish is commit fully to Luka as the face of the franchise. Okay, accomplished. Another goal was solving their long-standing center problem. They got Walker Kessler. And then I think the third thing that the Lakers were most looking forward to accomplishing this offseason was build a younger, deeper roster to better fit today's NBA. So I think according to those 3 things, I think there's a good way of saying here that the Lakers accomplished all 3 of those goals. So I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think as we, all sit here today, I think we could all kind of make the argument that the Lakers accomplished all 3 of those goals. Now, is the roster perfect? Clearly it's not. Are they still trying to figure out what to do with that power forward position? Of course they are. And, it's kind of funny, listening to Trevor yesterday. Trevor was on the show, phenomenal conversation with him. But listening to Trevor Lane, I think there was a lot of both of us that were sitting back, and it's like, yeah, they accomplished a lot of those goals, but there's still a lot more that needs to be figured out with the Lakers. But at least, up to this point, I think this article says the main things of if those were the Lakers' goals in the offseason, I think they accomplished it. Are they top 3 or top 4 in the West? No, I don't think so. Do they still got a ways to go? Sure. Are they going to be championship contenders this upcoming year? Probably not. So I think all of that, you probably got to take a step back to take a step forward. Now, are they better without LeBron? I think better in the sense of, let's put it this way. If LeBron decided to come back for $4 million, would Laker fans be upset about that? I think most Laker fans would be excited about that. I mean, I think there'd still be some question marks. I don't think it guarantees them they're top 2 in the Western Conference, but that's because the top 2 in the Western Conference are just, arguably the top 2 teams in the entire NBA. So interesting article, good stuff right there. Again, just kind of talks about how the Lakers are actually better without LeBron James, or better off. I think for the future they are. I think in the short term, you can make an argument that if LeBron was still on this team, still doing what he was doing, but you got Walker Kessler and all these other additions and all this other depth, that part I think is an argument for $4 million. I think a lot of people understand. But again, I don't know if you were going to be able to fully hand over the keys, even if LeBron was just making $4 million. But I think a lot of Laker fans would have been happy to kick the can down the road a little bit further if that was going to be the case. All right, good stuff there. That's like I said, that's a good article in the LA Times right now that really kind of breaks down a ton of different stuff, and that ultimately for the Lakers, they're still in a position that they want to be in. Okay, I know I got some supers that I got to read, so we're going to do that in a second. I did mention we got a guest. Brad Wallace is going to come join us in about 5 minutes or so. He'll join the show, and I want to get his thoughts on the offseason. Speaking of which, let's give some love to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. Been a great partner of the channel here. I've been independent on my own for 2 years here on this channel. He's been with me that entire time. He was with me when I was on radio as well. I can't tell you guys how important partnerships are to the growth of the channel, to making this a legitimate business. And Brad Wallace has accomplished a lot of those goals. Here's the beauty, too. For his business, he has told me that this channel has also been great for his business. So, shout out to our listeners who I hope never need Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm, but things do happen in life. And if they do, you got the best in the business that can represent you. Serious injury, wrongful death case, like I've mentioned, and we've had this conversation a ton. He could represent anybody in the state of California. Really, truly is the best in the business. So shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm for being a part of the channel. And shout out to our listeners who go out of their way and say, hey, Al, I've got people that have emailed me, hit me up on Instagram, and have gone to wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Thank you for supporting our partners in the process. Again, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Okay. Let's read some of these comments. Let's get through some of these comments. I did mention I had that Quentin Grimes stuff, which we'll wait on for a second here. But let's read a few of these comments here. Yes, we are better without LeBron. Yeah, I said this before, and I'll continue to say it. I don't know if you guys remember, but during the season last year, and let's give LeBron credit too. The dude went on an unbelievable run. A couple of the guys get injured. I thought he was the best player in the series against the Houston Rockets. But I think there was going to come a time where it's like, all right, let's kind of separate church and state here. Let's allow Luka Dončić to be Luka, and that's probably the only way that you're going to have a chance over these next handful of years to properly build around him and be the best version of himself. And again, I'll say this. I don't think that's LeBron's fault. I don't think LeBron did anything wrong. I just think it was time for both sides to move on. So, and from what I gather and from a lot of Laker fans who have given me their opinion for a while here, I think a lot of Laker fans were ready for that to happen as well. Kuminga will drag down the team chemistry. He's a selfish player, and nobody's talking about it. He doesn't care about defense. That's why a Hall of Fame coach gave up on him. Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of times, when I have the Kuminga conversation, I would say, here's my view on the Kuminga conversation from a Laker fan perspective. I would say it's probably, I'd probably say 70% of Laker fans are like, nah, we don't need him. Or how come that guy can't make a decision? But you know what? This guy is not. Go look at what happened in Atlanta, why they didn't give him that team option that they had. Or go look at what happened in Golden State. How come they didn't keep him when they were, desperate for young talent? That's fair. I still would wait and see if, I'd rather wait and see if we can make it happen than not. So I miss the new Suitors for JK. Who are they again? We should honestly just move on and focus. Is Randall realistic? Here are the new Suitors. We're talking about it this morning. Apparently, Minnesota's in the mix. Cleveland, we already know. Milwaukee and the Clippers would also try to be in the mix for Jonathan Kuminga. So, Michael, if that helps, that would be what's out there right now. At least according, there was a report out of Cleveland. Mike Scotto, who's part of Hoops Hype, there was a report from him this morning as well. So those would be the suitors that are in the mix. And then the Lakers obviously being one. I did read, at least for Minnesota, they really can offer almost pennies to the dollar of what the Lakers and the Cavs can offer. And we know money is already an issue on the Jonathan Kuminga front. Scrambling for an average player looks desperate and pathetic. Meanwhile, LeBron jersey sales are breaking records, but the Lakers are better without Bron. Thank you for the super. I appreciate you. He's breaking records because he's LeBron. And he went to the Philadelphia 76ers. There's reasons for that. But you can't tell me that the Lakers are not in need of a starting power forward. That's why this is a big deal. It's a big deal because If you can get Kuminga at a discount, that's why it's a big deal. The upside of Jonathan Kuminga, that's why it's a big deal. Young and athletic, that's why it's a big deal. But I get it. It's been a nuisance of a story. The story is kind of not going away, and we've been talking about it for a while here, so I completely understand that. Okay, some of these other supers I'll get to towards the end of the show, but let's get our guest on here. Let's get Brad Wallace a part of the mix here. You guys have seen him come on before. We've talked some Lakers in the past, and he's coming on again. What's up, Brad? What's going on, brother? How are you?
What's up, Alan? How are you, brother?
Okay, do me a favor, just so they could see the cold piece in the back there to your left there.
Yes, sir.
Can we get that in the? Look at that piece right there.
Yes,
Look
sir.
All right, yes, number one. Sir. Thank you for coming on, buddy.
Mamba mentality, brother.
You are your mix there of what you have, and I think I've shown people before. You got some pretty cool memorabilia that's a part of the mix there. How much do you know of the partner yesterday that Lakers partnered with? I don't know if you saw that. Did you see they partnered with a memorabilia company? Okay, we'll leave that alone. I thought you might know something about that. What's going on? How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm happy to be on the show and happy to talk some Lakers with you and hang out with you and your audience. Lakers offseason has been
what do you think?
Really interesting offseason.
Mm-hmm. Give me like your, because I a lot of times, and I talk about it obviously on a daily basis, so it's nice and fresh to hear somebody else giving their opinion on it.
Sure.
You look at the last 30 plus days, really 30 days. You feel more optimistic? Do you like it? What are kind of your initial thoughts on what they did in the offseason?
So first of all, immediate reaction is I love it. I don't just like it, I love it for a couple of reasons. Number one is, we've gone through as Laker fans kind of that normal offseason, the typical Laker offseason where they go and they grab a couple of 1 year kind of cheap contracts and they kind of just try to run it back and they're just kind of middling. And that's been the story with kind of the LeBron era because LeBron requires, a certain roster around him. And he's always trying to bring in those like low cost championship veteran guys. And it's always kind of an older team. I mean, look, KCP just signed on with Philly.
It's a good example.
It's like the LeBron crew, right? Clutch Sports, all that stuff. So the Lakers didn't just have like their normal offseason. They honestly, I would say, arguably completed the fastest franchise identity turnover in modern NBA history. In February of 2025, Luka gets traded. And in July of 2026, LeBron leaves. That's within 18 months, the franchise goes from LeBron's team for the last 8 years to unequivocally, this is Luka Dončić's organization. And then within a span of 24 to 36 hours, they make all these signings that, number one, contractually line up with Luka, right?
Sure.
Like Luka's got 3 years on this deal, this extension he signed, but he's got the player option, I think, after the second. So they're in this window where they have to show Luka that they are committed to building around him. They sign Austin Reaves, who by all accounts is like his best friend now.
Right.
And Reaves signs a 4-year deal. Then you look at all the other deals they signed. Quentin Grimes, 4 years, $60 million. Walker Kessler, 4 years, $130 million. Mamu, 4 years, $52 million, right? So they're putting together this core with all the contract years lined up. And the core is like exactly what is needed to build around Luka. You saw the story like last offseason where Luka and Rob Pelinka are coming out of that swanky Beverly Hills restaurant and Pelinka's got the 3-ring binder under his shoulder, right? With all the metrics and everything, because they've been talking about this for a year. But this is like exactly what Luka needs. He needs, young, he needs rim runners, he needs lob threats,
rim protector.
He needs rim protection. And you look at the roster and that's what they did. The other part of it is like you just look at the youth of the age of the roster. The only guy on the roster right now, and they have like no available roster spots unless they make a trade or cut some guys or whatever. But they have a full roster with only one guy on the roster that's
In his
30 years
30s.
old.
Yeah,
And
Looney.
it's Looney, and he's 30. It's not like he's 34, right, whatever. You know, a 30-year-old is like the old man on the roster. So you got all these young, athletic, explosive guys. I mean, I would argue, you know, sort of the opposite of whatever the narrative is right now with the Lakers, which is Kuminga. I don't think Kuminga is what they need at all. If you look at the roster, I think what they need is another big, because you have Walker Kessler, who obviously has to be available this year, and he has to be great, right? And I think he will be both. I think he's, you know, Utah was tanking last year. They held him out. 100%. He probably could have played, but they held him out and they got paid on the Darren Peterson #2 pick for tanking, right? And he's got a lot to prove. And I think he's extremely grateful to the Lakers for giving up how much they gave up to get him and for paying him as much as they're paying him. So I think Luka Dončić is going to turn Walker Kessler into an all NBA big for sure. But even if he stays healthy and he plays 75 games and he's like the clear #1, your backup big is Kevin Looney, who over his career has been durable. He only played like 20 games last year, but he's also just not that big. He's like 6'9", and you don't have anyone else on the roster over, you know, above 6'9". So I think they need another capable big.
I think both can be accomplished, because a lot of the reports out there is they still want 2 more spots,
right?
Another backup center, and then that athletic power forward. Right. And whether that's Kuminga or it's not, let's take out all the names. I think what you just said, I think they definitely recognize they need another big. And I'm with you. Listen, go look at the Western Conference right now.
Correct.
And there is kind of the NBA is adjusting a little bit, where there's a time where it's only centers. Then there's a time where it's all stretch fives and nobody's playing big. Well, now it's turned back, and go look at the size that the Spurs have. Go look at the size, obviously, that the Thunder have. You can even look at Jokic and Minnesota. Like they're big teams out there. So I think what you're saying, I think in a perfect world for the Lakers, don't pay attention to the 16 roster spots. Don't pay attention to any of that. They got until opening day to obviously figure that out. And they could, you know, there's some ways for them to be creative there. But I think in a perfect world, they're adding a 4 and they're adding another 5. So I'm with you. I think that if you took the name out, the Jonathan Kuminga name out, and it was just another athletic 4, I think they could use an athletic 4, and I think they could use another backup 5. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and I think the signing of Zaire Williams was a little bit of a backstop in case they don't get Kuminga. He's a 6'9", kind of small forward. He's kind of a sneaky, interesting pickup for them. They also traded
no risk at all. Like that's another one of those.
Right.
You obviously can get in and see what he can do.
Right, and then they picked up same thing, Matisse Thybulle on the vet minimum contract, who hasn't stayed healthy and all that, but like he's a defensive stopper kind of a guy. His metrics on like steals is like phenomenal, the highest in the NBA. Yeah. And then
what's funny about those 2 players is when the free agency started and Kuminga's name started coming up, the backup plan was Matisse Thybulle or Zaire Williams. So I think the fact that they went and got both of them.
Yeah.
And, obviously they're still looking for, I think they understand they need a starting power forward. But I think the fact that they still have those 2 guys.
But I wouldn't dismiss the possibility that they're looking at Mamu as their starting power forward. I mean, they signed him to 4 years, $52 million. He's not like the greatest defensive metric player, but he can shoot the 3, and he's like exactly like what they need for Luka in that offense. Like that,
he'll space the floor. He'll definitely
space it. I think Austin Reaves may end up benefiting the most from the roster turnover, because you have, when he's on the floor with Luka's going to have the ball and demand attention. They're going to be running the pick and roll with Kessler. You're going to have to cover Kessler, and it's going to create a lot of open looks for Reaves. So I'm excited about the roster. The other thing that I'm really excited about is I read, obviously everyone's seen the articles about Luka flying the whole team out to Slovenia for like a little mini camp.
That's unique.
Team building thing. And yeah. I think it's like a little bit underrated in terms of a move. There's obviously the chemistry, the team building aspect, which is important, even for the Lakers. Traditionally, they haven't done it as recently, but, even going back to the Showtime Lakers, every year they used to all go to Hawaii and be in Hawaii for a couple of weeks, right. Kind of team build and get away from, the bright lights of LA and be able to build some chemistry. But I think also there's like some symbolism there with like, this is now my team. I want you guys to all come and see where I'm from, see, where my roots are. Let me show you, and then really just getting totally out of like the US and off the radar. You're not going to have TMZ reporters like in Slovenia, it's not quite like Rocky Balboa in Siberia training for Ivan Drago, but it's remote enough where I think it's going to create that team chemistry.
Yeah.
And there's a symbolic aspect of like, it's, Luka's team now. And I think that's going to be great. And then, I just think overall, like it's a young team, it's a new team, it's Luka's team. And, wish LeBron the best in Philly, but the time had come to turn the page. And not necessarily that it, if you were to argue, okay, look at the Lakers roster right now. If they added LeBron James for $4 million, wouldn't that make them better? I mean, arguably in the short term, I think you would have to say yes, because of how effective and productive LeBron was on the floor last year. But with LeBron James, there's more to it than the basketball metrics, right? He's a force of nature. He sucks all the oxygen out of the room. There's all the politics and inner kind of dynamics going on within an organization. And you're never, ever going to allow Luka to take the keys and have it be his franchise and his team when LeBron is on the roster. So I think there was a certain point where the Lakers said, look, in the short term, does LeBron make us better this year? Maybe, yes. But sometimes you have to take a step back to take two steps forward. And also, like, I don't think the Lakers even ever made LeBron any offer, and so I think from an organizational standpoint,
and I don't know if LeBron would have took 4 from the Lakers. Like, I think this was once, however you want to look at it. I mean, I saw Dave McMenamin put out a couple days ago about how LeBron's camp didn't really feel that they wanted LeBron back, and it was kind of maybe more lip service. I agree with that. Like, I agree with that
too. And I also think if you're going to argue, LeBron wanted the Lakers to pay him $30 million, but he would have taken 4 from Philly. Well, then it's like, well, why should the Lakers have paid him $30 million? Like, his market value's 4, so.
Or how about this? He was only going to take, like, again, I think for the Lakers, it's different. I think he's been here for 8 years. I think he understood that this is Luka's franchise. Like, the moment they made the move for Luka, it was just a matter of time until the keys were handed over to him officially. And I'm with you. I don't think you could have had LeBron on this roster and said, "Hey, Luka, it's your team." And that's just, listen, there's think of all the great players to ever play the game, right?
Correct.
Until that player is gone, it's like,
absolutely.
You can't turn
that. And Luka, to his credit, Luka showed maximum respect and maximum love to LeBron.
Yeah, I agree with you.
There was never any point where Luka said anything critical about LeBron or, created any daylight between their relationship. But the reality is that's because Luka is a historian and a fan of the game, and he respects LeBron as an all-time great. But at the end of the day, the Lakers just signed him to this big extension. He's the future. He's 27 years old in his prime. He's still, in my opinion, a top 3 guy. And he's just not going to be able to do what he needs to do if LeBron's on the roster.
And this roster will now complement that. So I think, look, you could tell me if you agree with this. I think for a lot of Laker fans, there's a little bit of I don't know. It's refreshing to see the direction, because I think the direction now is clear. And there is no kind of, well, this or if, or even when it was AD and LeBron, you were starting to ask yourself those last couple of years of those guys playing together. It's like, hey, is that window done? Even with AD is the and best LeBron, days behind them.
Right.
So I think it's been about 5 years where it's almost been the same conversation. Yes. And I think this is the first offseason where you can at least see what the vision is. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. Doesn't mean they're going to go win a championship, but at least you kind of see through the glare.
Yeah. And I think the other point, to your point, is that when LeBron was here and then they made the trade for AD.
Yeah.
The narrative from day one, even from LeBron himself, was, this is going to be a passing of the torch, and I'm going to hand the keys to AD, and it's going to be his team. Well, obviously peak AD was in the bubble when they won the championship in 2020.
Sure.
But beyond that, with the injuries and the missed time and his inability, AD, to be, to really create and to be the man, where he would, drop 40 and 20, and then the next night he would have 10 and 3 or whatever. And he was never established himself as a guy that could be the number one guy that you could hand the keys. So then it came to a point where it's like, I don't think LeBron could hand the keys to AD. And then, it remained LeBron's team. And then every year they just kept trying to do a little bit more of the same and kick the can down the road. And to your point now, they've ripped the Band-Aid off.
Yep.
They've gone a new direction. Is it going to be, difficult for them to contend this year? A lot of people are saying yes. I would argue no. I think they're going to be in the mix. Obviously, Walker Kessler needs to be the man. But if he's the man,
I'm most excited about, to be honest with you. I'm most excited to see him this year.
Yeah, and Luka is going to make him the best version of himself. But if Walker Kessler, from a defensive standpoint, is like a top defensive big, and he's a big lob threat to LeBron. Look at how good LeBron made those guys in Dallas, Gafford and
Luka.
Luka. Yeah. But those
Gafford,
guys are
lively.
Those guys
Washington
are not on the level of Kessler. I think Kessler's going to eat all season. And then you got Reaves and you got a bunch of young athletic guys. So I think they're going to be in the mix. And I also think, people are dismissing the potential contributions of Tiero and especially Cameron Carr. Oh, he's too young. He's a rookie. I'm sorry.
They'll get opportunities.
I disagree with that. Look at what Dylan Harper did for the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
He was a big part of their run, got major minutes in the finals, and that was his rookie season too. So,
or how about this? How about this? A better comp on that one, even Carter Bryant, who maybe wasn't a number 2 pick, but is just athletic, energy. I'm going to do all the little things like that. Might be even a better comp, because Dylan Harper was that's special what he was doing as a rookie, right? And completely was okay with the moment. But I get the point of what you're saying is rookies and sophomores can contribute.
Yes.
Right? It's not like they're going to be asked to go run a team or run an offense.
Correct.
They'll have a role, and they'll have opportunities where, that youth and athleticism will play to the Lakers' advantage. I want to ask you this question, because
sure.
I think, you mentioned just on the Kuminga front, because that has been basically the conversation the last 2-3 weeks. It's been revolved around Kuminga. Does the way this is played out, seeing his time maybe with Golden State and Atlanta, the fact that this thing is dragging on, does it put a certain taste in your mouth on Kuminga? It hasn't to me. To me, I still think the Lakers, if they're able to get him, I think, like you said, guys like Luka can make other players just complete, just great role players or get the best version of themselves. I think Luka can do that with Jonathan Kuminga. I think Austin Reaves will also just his ability to facilitate. Has the Kuminga stuff kind of put a bad taste in your mouth or not?
For me, I just, if they get him, fine. But it doesn't move the needle that much for me because I've just never been a big Kuminga guy. He's always kind of been that like more potential than output kind of guy. I think, you might have even said it earlier, like it says something about a guy that he's on a Golden State roster with, a Hall of Fame coach and
Of course.
Hall of Famers, and they move him to Atlanta. And then, he didn't really do that much in Atlanta last year. So he's still young. I'll give it that. He's obviously got the metrics and the athletic ability. Offensively, he's definitely a weapon. But I don't think that's like, if they sign him, I don't think my opinion would be, oh, that's puts us over. And if they don't sign him, I don't think, my take is going to be, oh, if we only would have had
devastating.
Kuminga.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think it's like, if you can get him at or below market and you think you have the ability to kind of bring out the best of him, great. If you don't get him, I'm fine with them putting their efforts towards finding another quality big. I think they need size up front a little bit more than if they had to pick one, Kuminga or a quality backup big, I would prefer they get a quality backup big. If they can get both, great. But to me, it's not like the end all be all of their, remaining off season.
So safe to say, I think not just you, but I think you share a similar sentiment of excited what the potential, what it's going to look like next year, the fact that it is going to look a lot different, the fact that they're building completely around Luka, and now they got to figure out just kind of these last couple of pieces and how they get there. So yeah. I think there's a lot of Laker fans that share a similar sentiment.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. And, there's also like the big part of this that like, don't dismiss or forget that this is going to be Luka's revenge tour, like part of what goes with, now this is my team, my franchise, part of what goes with, I'm going to bring all my guys out to Slovenia. Part of what goes with, the Lakers have kind of fulfilled their end of the bargain by going out and constructing the roster specifically to cater to Luka's talents, Luka's needs, Luka's game. Part of that now is Luka like going to that next level. And, there was a month there last season where he was averaging like almost 40 a game. And
brother, he's a killer. He's a killer. I don't think we've seen the best version of him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is if Luka goes to another level and just goes bananas this year, like he carried Dallas to the finals with not that much on the roster. There's a lot more on this Lakers roster than there was on that Dallas run roster. And so, don't forget we got Luka Dončić.
Well, I think the main thing is you also got to build for Luka. He needs specific things. And if he doesn't have those specific things, then he can't be the best version of himself. And listen, it's not going to be, I will tell you, the West today is not the West when he got to the NBA Finals. Spurs and the Thunder are as much of a headache as any team out there. We'll see what happens with Denver. There's a lot of question marks. There's some kind of more up-and-coming teams in the Western Conference as well. But at least it's, like I said, I think we're walking into a completely different restaurant. And I think we felt like we kept going to the same restaurant over and over again. I knew the menu exactly. I knew kind of what the end result was going to be. I think this one's a little bit like I got no real idea what to expect. And I think that in itself is kind of exciting. Like, I think that in itself is kind of exciting.
Absolutely. And to your point, I think even within the Laker fan base, there's over the last couple of seasons started to develop a little bit of that LeBron fatigue. And it's not like, people were hating on LeBron, but it's, it wears thin, and he's older and he's not the LeBron of 10 years ago, and it's first round exits, and it's getting swept, and it's, not having a roster to be able to compete. And it's,
It reached
clutch
its
sports and all the politics. And so getting that slate wiped clean and starting fresh in and of itself was a huge part of like what the Lakers needed to do this offseason. They accomplished it. They've built a roster around Luka, and I'm excited. It's going to be great.
So today we'll complete our second year of our partnership on YouTube. So literally
Awesome.
today does that.
Awesome.
Shout out.
I knew
Obviously,
there was a reason you picked today.
You know what's funny? We tried doing this 2 weeks ago, and then just based on scheduling wise, and then when we booked it, I'm like, wait a minute, that's actually timing wise.
Yeah, and it worked out because I was supposed to be starting trial this Monday up in Stockton, California, Northern California, on a case involving a young woman who was injured at her high school. And I just had a hearing 2 days ago where the judge moved the trial. So if I was in trial starting Monday, I probably would have told you that I wasn't available today to come on the show because I would have been in trial prep mode. But the trial got moved, and I'm happy to be on the show and happy to support you. And it's been amazing, Alan, to see the growth of your channel and the development of your business model and all the amazing guests that you have on your show. I'm a fan as much as I am a friend and a sponsor. And to continue to watch you kind of build what you're building has been really, really cool and fun to see from the outside and the inside. And looking forward to more big things from the Lakers and also from Hoops Talk and the Sliwa Show.
Well, I tell you, and the timing of it is great because, a lot of people, I love it because you've been on the channel before. So, obviously this isn't the first time. You genuinely love Lakers basketball, right? So you genuinely love the game, and how many times you'll text me and be like, hey, are you at the game today? Because I'm at the game today. You're taking your son or whatever the case is. So the personal relationship we have, but you're also somebody that genuinely does just kind of enjoy the content and everything else. Appreciate, obviously these couple of years of making it happen. So I just wanted, I'm happy that, listeners also get a chance to just kind of see you. They hear me babbling about you all the time. So to get an opportunity to obviously to kind of listen to a little bit more of your in-depth stuff. Anything you want to tell listeners or any of that stuff? If there's anything you got, feel free to. But, obviously this, and I don't need to reiterate to you, but obviously I appreciate everything that you've helped out with the channel as well.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all love, man. And we're happy to support the channel and love the show and appreciate everything that you guys do to get the word out about our law firm and what we do to help people. And obviously, what we do is represent people who've been seriously injured or families of people that have been wrongfully killed. And we represent them and get them compensation against insurance companies for the people that are responsible for causing the harm and fighting the good fight every day.
There you go.
It's definitely a David versus Goliath mentality going up against billion-dollar insurance companies, but it's very, very rewarding work because we work for people. And when we get a result for a person or their family, and to see the meaningful change that money can do for them in their lives is really rewarding. And so we just keep going every day and helping whoever we can help. So if anyone ever obviously needs something or wants to reach out and has any questions about a legal case, or if they have a legal case, we're always here. But other than that, we're supporting you, man, and we'll be here, and we're going to be cheering on the Lakers and looking forward to a great season.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you.
Right,
we have the website mentioned at wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Brad, thank you, brother. Hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks,
we'll
everyone.
Talk to you soon, and thank you for coming on.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right. That's Brad Wallace. Wallace Firm right there. All right. Guy knows his stuff. He knows his stuff. Don't screw around about Lakers basketball. All right, good stuff there. I'm glad we're able to do that and coordinate it. Literally today kind of completes our 2-year partnership that we've had together. So we obviously start looking into the future. Okay, I'm going to look at a couple of comments here, and then we're going to call it a day. I mentioned I got a membership show coming up at 9:30. Let's see. Let's get a couple here. we miss the point. The moves are clear. We're missing the point. The moves are clear. If we get a real 4, who is Luka guarding? 2 or 3 Williams, and Thibault got us covered. I still will take that depth. I think it's an interesting point from Brad, like more concerned about getting another big than getting another 4. I get that. I understand that. That's kind of the, obviously that's that's definitely from a big perspective, obviously important. That's awesome. Yeah, there you go. I'll take a couple of these. Make our partners feel good. Look at you guys. What am I hiring you guys as well? LeBron craves attention 24/7. You can have that diva in the building if you really want this team to revolve around Luka. With that said, let's see what this team can be minus the circus that comes with LeBron. Was it that much of a circus? I think there's an overreaction there. People saying that it was a circus. I guess I'm not one that, looked at LeBron and looked at that situation and thought, oh my gosh, what is happening here? Some people did. I mean, I guess maybe there was one point where that happened, and that probably happened when they drafted Bronny. I thought the franchise was over. I'm like, that's it. The franchise got hijacked. The Lakers no longer own the Lakers. It is owned by LeBron. All right, let's get a couple more supers in here, a couple NBA stories, and then we're going to get the hell out of here. I told you guys I got a member show coming up as well. Brad, how can we get the Drip Show send a free Kobe camp? I'm not kidding. That piece that he had on Kobe, he kind of like changed his angle for a second. I'm like, no, that's got to be in the background. He's got some legit cool pieces that are a part of his office. He's like loves memorabilia, so he's got some crazy stuff in there. Cool. It's not just Laker stuff. He's got a lot of different stuff in there. All right, I appreciate you guys. Obviously giving love to our partners. So even in the comments and everything else. So shout out to you guys for doing that. I appreciate that. It kind of also lets me know that you guys kind of understand how the business is as well. Okay, couple NBA stories. We're getting the heck out of here. Eric, if you could put in the weekend preview in there, I'd appreciate that. Okay, couple things here of our top NBA stories. Ramona Shelburne reports that the Clippers, reports that the Clippers would be fine with Kawhi coming back to the team if the trade fails, if the trade falls through, and explains how that could happen with the Raptors deciding not to go through with the trade. Ramona says there are no reports of the Raptors wanting to back out and that it's more of a league-wide discussion. I don't know what the hell is going to happen in this, Toronto, or the aspiration and circumventing the, obviously circumventing the salary cap. But how odd would that be if training camp starts and Kawhi's a Clipper? How odd would that be if Brandon Ingram's still with the Raptors? Like, the trade went down. The trade happened, and they all got to wait now. I hope that's not the case. I hope this stuff gets done and these teams can all move on. But again, if the Clippers circumvented, then you got to do what you got to do. Andrew Marchand from The Athletic reports that ESPN and LeBron are closing in on an agreement for a Last Dance-esque documentary. I talked about that on the radio show yesterday in San Diego, and we were kind of talking about, are we interested? I'm not kidding. I'm telling you, just being honest here. All three of us said not interested. I don't know if other people are interested. I don't know. The Jordan thing just kind of had its own thing. But I just, I don't really have any interest in it. I don't know what to tell you, but it's not doing anything for me. Weekend previews presented by the Wallace Firm. Shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Okay, a couple things here. I'm going to give everyone a quick update here. Monday, unless there's kind of some big news that goes down, we are not going to do a show on Monday. For the month of August, just so people understand, it's not going to be the same way as it's been, where it's doing 5 days a week. Honestly, the news is just going to kind of start getting lighter and lighter. So I'll probably be a little bit more strategic how we're going to do the show in the month of August. I do have Bobby Marks confirmed for Tuesday. So I'll be back on Tuesday. No show on Monday. Back on Tuesday. We'll have Bobby Marks on of ESPN, obviously front office insider. So looking forward to have Bobby Marks on. Be a little more strategic now as we go. I don't want to force shows. And, maybe we can get next week somebody from the Utah Jazz that can give us, somebody covers the Jazz. We could talk about Kessler. Like, I want to be a little bit more strategic in it. So give everyone an idea. That's what we got coming up on the show. And again, no show on Monday, but on Tuesday, we'll have Bobby Marks on. All right. Phenomenal week. Great stuff from everybody. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. If you are a member, give me 15 minutes. We'll come back and do a member show for those who are members. If you're not, consider it. There's a join button. It's $3 a month. Great way to support the channel and come shoot the shit with me. Thank you for being a part of the show. Shout out to Eric Scalar for producing. Thank you to Brad Wallace, obviously, for coming on the show as well. Hope you guys have a great weekend. I will see you guys on Tuesday.